Welcome to the Cutting Edge Podcast, where culture meets crypto. Today, we have a former MLB player, digital artist, and founder of Aku, the NFT collection about a young boy with dreams of being an astronaut. In less than 1 year, Aku became 2020's NFT of the Year and the first NFT optioned for a major feature film. Named one of the top 50 most influential people in NFTs by Fortune, his foresight and belief in the Web3 communities to evangelize IP has resulted in over $24 million in sales volume for Aku to date, with well-known supporters like Pusha T and Trevor. Despite a very public setback during the minting of Akutars, he is here today to discuss what the future holds for Aku. Please welcome Micah Johnson. Hey, Micah, how are you?
Pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. It's a shame you were just in VCon this past weekend, right?
Yeah, man. We couldn't link up, I guess.
We couldn't link up. It's crazy because you were really. I mean, we spoke. I believe it had to have been March of last year. It was really, really early on. I think it was before your first drop on Nifty, or it was either before your first drop or right after your first drop on Nifty.
Right after, I think.
Yeah.
They talking about the Aku one. Yeah, it was right after, I think. Right after.
Yeah, and I remember, you were discussing pretty much everything that you've done over the last 14, 15 months. You were discussing right then and there, which I think was really awesome. I want to get into VCon in a second because I would love to know your experience on that. But what's your experience been like so far in Web3 as you've been, going down the rabbit hole this entire time?
It's crazy to see where it's at today. I mean, when I first got into it in late 2019, it was a whole different thing. It was, I wasn't even NFT. It was just crypto art. I don't think that I was using the term NFT at that point. And it was just built on relationships. It was built on, having these relationships with collectors and other artists. And everybody knew everybody, and everybody was kind of just trying to figure out and support each other. And now it's grown into this massive thing and this whole thing. But it's been a lot of fun trying to learn, different ways to innovate with the technology as the technology innovates and grows and gets better as well.
Yeah, and so I guess because I don't think I even know this. How did you get into how did you find NFTs? How did you start, going down the rabbit hole? Because 2019, right?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I got into it. I retired from baseball at the end of 2018, fall of 2018. That next year, I just kind of was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And then, all of 2019, really trying to make things and make money selling art. And I just to no avail. And discovered, crypto and crypto art, and just kind of figured this could be a lane for me to try out and get into. I believed in what it stood for. I believed in what the power of it, and I believed in the human beings that were taking the time to talk to me. Zach from Super Rare, Jimmy, Nate Alex, Trevor Jones, Hackatal, all these people that were early on, showing me kind of love. I knew there was something here. And so then I just, minted my first NFT, and I was able to see kind of what, how things kind of are supposed to go in this space.
Right. So when you minted your first NFT, I assume it was on ETH?
Yeah, it was on Super Rare.
Oh, nice. All right, cool. And then I guess what made you decide, how did Aku come about? And, did you have plans for as big as it's become? Right from the outset, or were you just kind of making art and this character something that stuck out?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wanted just to create a character that was based around my paintings. My physical paintings to date are based around young African American kids with wearing space helmets, symbolizing that they could be anything. I think the astronaut motif is one of those that symbolizes this dream or this occupation that seems so far out there. How could anybody ever become an astronaut? And I wanted to create a digital character that I could seed organically through the community, Because my paintings hang on one person's wall and they don't see the light of day after that, right? So how can we create a character that reaches a broader audience? And that's how I came up with Aku. And it wasn't like I didn't have this big idea to expand into the things we're doing now. I didn't know that was even a thing. I just wanted to get this character out into the world, and I knew that I wanted to do 10 episodes, call them chapters, because I knew that I wanted to have time to tell the story. And because of my time, up to that point in the NFT world, knowing how the community can evangelize something and spread the word, I knew that this would be my best opportunity to build this into a bigger thing, whatever that looked like, because the community, if they liked it, would talk about it and tell their other friends about it. And if they did it, they wouldn't do anything, and that we would find out really quickly.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point you bring up there, where your first NFT was a one of one, correct? On
Yep.
Super Rare, and I think understanding, and this is where I think is really interesting, is like it seems like you understood really early on the power of that community that will evangelize it, right? Of like which is why I believe the Nifty, at least the first one, was an open edition, I believe, right?
They all were, yeah.
Yeah, they all were. And so like, I remember I bought a ton of the Nifty, the first editions, and
Yeah, you did.
yeah. And just like, I just think that that's something that some people kind of really forget as they're coming into the space, is like really the power of that community. You hear people talk about it all the time, but I think people sometimes like, oh, well, I don't want to, dilute the value of my work by doing an open edition or whatever. But I think there is a lot of value towards creating that community at a lower price point, right? And I think that's something you learn like really early on.
Yeah, we kept no matter I think when we first released those, ETH was like, we priced it at $999. ETH was like 1,500 at that time, 1,700 or something like that. Even when ETH went up to like 4,000 something, we kept the price the same every single drop. So $999. Never raised the price, nor lowered the price. And we had 2 chapters that were free, 4 and 8. And the idea there was like, you just wanted people to collect these, because at this point, as things started to grow and Aku was validated by other external people, I wanted people to have a chance to collect these things. I looked as like digital comics of like this major character, this character that I believe wholeheartedly that is like a generational character. And here are these pieces of his story on chain that you own, and you'll see these stories play out in more traditional content. I think that's going to be something really, really special. And I don't know if we'll ever see until that day. It's going to these chapters for me were things that I look at like from a 20 to 30 to 40 year horizon, 50 year horizon. When you think about what was the last major characters, the Spider-Mans, the Hulks, and those comics, and what those means. And here these are on chain stories of Aku. I think it's really special, and I truly mean that.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I think the fact that it went viral so quickly speaks a lot to what that means to, and how it's connecting with consumers, right? And I know
Yeah.
we were talking about it really early on, so I know you had this viewpoint like super early on. But when did you really become committed to being like, okay, I'm going to create like the Akuverse out of this and really like scale this? Like like, because it's like, I think sometimes, especially for me, I'm like, okay, this is going to be big, and then I'm like, holy shit, like this would be way bigger than I originally thought, right? And I'm sure that probably crossed your mind at some point too, and I'd love to know what that was like.
For me, it was just from when I started just learning things and really learning the tools we were using, learning about the traditional media system, and started connecting the dots on like the real potential here. So as time went on, if you sure it started as chapters, but we did the film and TV option in April. So right after chapter 1, before chapter 2. So that was early. So I was able to learn the system pretty early, because we had met with a bunch of studios when we first did that deal. So, you learn the traditional system a little bit and understand, what the end game there is. And then we start learning game engines and, what the power is with using Unreal Engine. And then, over time, just really trying to immerse myself across all the different things that, the tools that we were using to figure out, how can we tell story in a non necessarily traditional way that is creates this kind of always on ecosystem that allows us to iterate and ship products and that don't necessarily require us to commit to building a massive game or a massive film, because I don't think those are the things anymore. It's more about how can you give people story and content across things that are accessible to them, and how also do you allow them to be a part of that story. I think film and most importantly, film is more so marketing for the rest of the ecosystem that we're building.
Right. So if you could tell us a little bit about that ecosystem that you're building out, right? And I'm really intrigued about the whole new forms of storytelling, right? Because I think the traditional forms that we are accustomed to are very cost intensive, right? So a lot of time, as much as you want to do something, there's somebody that's kind of financing it. That's well, that's gonna be too expensive. So you as the creator and the artist don't get to kind of maybe have your full vision the way you would like it to be because of that.
Yeah, that's right. I think for us, the biggest thing for me that, we don't need to touch on this yet, but when we had the contract issue, and it says, okay, people are wondering, how can you scale your thing now, your project? How can you, that wasn't the funding, necessarily required for that. That was just to give optionality when it comes to the things you're talking about, the big budget film and things like that. There's things that you do now that require trade-offs for that, for film. But there's other things that we could do to build this ecosystem and story with tooling that already exists. So for us, we leverage Unreal Engine, and for us, what that means is, Aku is a fully rigged metahuman skeleton, meaning he's cross-platform across things that are using metahuman. More importantly, we're able to build and ship, stories and content and build environments that are reusable across the different things that we're doing. So right now, we're developing a mini series that would be distributed to a very large audience, but a lot of those assets are being reused from assets that we already have. So you talk about how do you tell a story that is cost efficient, and that is one of those ways is building things that are interoperable across linear content, across social, across virtual environments that people can play in. So for us, that's what it is. And then when it comes down to the Akutars, we built 15,000 unique ones that all have their own little personality and story to them. Also, built on in Unreal on a metahuman skeleton as well, so that the end goal is that they'll have basically a platform or that allows anybody to create their own stories, tell their own stories with their Akutars in their environments that they're building, and you have assets and environments that you can acquire and tell your story in the same way that we do, tell your own chapters. And for us, that's what we're based on, is telling story across these different mediums and empowering other people to tell these stories through virtual environments and 3D assets, but doing so in a way that isn't labor intensive from a necessarily tech build out. Like the thing we're talking about, the platform, the metahuman rigs, that's something that we can ship pretty soon to let people just kind of play with their stuff. You understand a little bit about Unreal, and now they're in the Unreal project. You can have fun with it if you take about an afternoon to learn. But so we can ship things over time that it doesn't say we're going to go build a game. We'll see you guys in 5 years.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess as you build out the Akuverse, and let's say I have an Akutar, is it one whole connected metaverse, or is it me kind of, I'm going to have my space, you're going to have your space, and we can kind of build it out the way we want?
You're going to be able to build it out the way you want. So the tooling for that is not that far away, right, where you can build out an environment the way you want to build out an environment. You want to have upgradable assets. You want to have, dope things in your spot that other people don't have. That's not that far away at all. Right. And I think that's more interesting. I think when you think about big open worlds, they can get kind of boring,
Mhm.
if you don't have the tools necessary for people to build things. So for us, it's just starting small and then aligning ourselves with the right partners that can facilitate, go to market quicker and more efficiently. For example, the virtual worlds are not that far. Very soon, you'll be able to have a world built in Unreal that you can display
Right.
your Akutars. Take that a step further. Now you're walking around with your Akutars. Take that a step further. Now there's camera positions, and now you're shooting yourself
Right.
in these settings. So it's just incremental releases um, and building on top of each other.
Right. No, I mean that makes so much sense because I think we see that a lot now, right? Where as teams will raise a bunch of money, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna do something, make a game or do something." It's like, well, I don't know what your skill set is, and I don't know if you can really complete that, right? So I think it's a really interesting approach. It seems like it's more of a social approach more so than like a gaming approach.
Yeah, I think games are hard. Like my business partner, very extensive background in gaming, and sort of our team, very extensive background. I remember the first time, I was talking to her about coming and joining. I was like, I think we're going to build. I want to build this like virtual world, and like I call it like a virtual game. And she said, I'm not joining then. like no chance. I'm not building a game. Like that's the hardest, most like. Uh, she has like PTSD from building games.
Right.
Games are really, really, really hard because to make it look good, you need like very fun, engaging game loops
Right.
and mechanics. The token stuff that's fleeting, like in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
There needs to be a game that actually is fun to
Yeah, no,
play.
I think I always laugh because obviously there's been a whole boom in like P to E games coming out, and people are like, oh, we're gonna raise like $1 million, $2 million, and then we're gonna build a game, and it's like, dude, like Activision, Blizzard, EA, all these companies spend tens of millions of dollars and take like 5+ years to build a game, and it still will flop, right? So it's like why, it's
Yeah.
just I think that there probably will be like some really great, amazing games coming out of the space, but I do think it's way harder than people think. They're like, oh yeah, like I've played a video game before, like I can make something, and it's much harder than people think.
And gaming is just something I'm not that interested in. Like
Right.
I'm not going to sit and play. I tell you, I'm going to sit and play a video game.
Right.
But I know that if I can have my own little space that I'm making things with my daughter, and creating our own stories with my daughter, with this character that I'm watching, that she watches on TV or in the film, and it's like then that's fun for me. That is like an enjoyment for me, right? Whatever form that takes, be able to like create with my daughter or having people like put out content is fun. Having TikTok, influencers making things with their Akutars in virtual environments, and like
Right.
that stuff is fun for people. It's just giving them the tools to create. Not everybody's going to want to play a game. I'm not going to sit there and play a video game. Now, I think like that's not to say like it's not right for everybody. Like I think
Right.
of course, it makes sense for some people and some things, but at the end of the day, we're a very strong IP, and that's the hardest part is building strong IP. And so for us, we want to tell that story as best as we can across different platforms, and then enable other people to tell that story on top of that. Had we not been, um, you know, had we not had this strong enough IP like this, that is, it's not dependent on a certain market to work. It's just a character that people really resonate with and something that's really authentic. Then sure, maybe we have to figure out a different model. Maybe I released like Turned Up Turtles, and then like it went off, and now we got to figure out. But like for us, it's storytelling, and always has been, and always will be.
Right. Yeah, no. So I guess that's a good, I guess a question I have is you've mentioned before that you feel that there's a sense of responsibility as a Black creator to keep doors open for others to follow your path. How do you see Aku opening up opportunities for Black creators and founders in the NFT space?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, for us, for the past year was to really show how we could tell a story. We need to prove it out first.
Mhm.
Like I'm a big believer in like one hit doesn't make you a proven winner. So like one great chapter sale didn't make us great. Three didn't make us great. We wanted to prove this out first. That like how can you seed this and build on top of that. So for us, the most important thing we could do is surround ourselves with the right people that can build out a pipeline that can be replicated and that can allow for other creators to come in and use our tools and use our platform to seed IP. Like I have a few meetings this week about additional IP, and I feel like now we have a framework of how IP can help how our infrastructure is going to be able to help other creators come with substantial IP that can integrate into the Aku ecosystem. I think that the NFT space is notoriously, you look around, like there's not that much diversity, and it's something that, for me, as somebody who has found success, and I was early in the space, how can I do a better job of empowering other, even just artists? Because at the core, I'm an artist, right? And that's where I think of the tools that we're building from Aku being on a metahuman and the intricacies and the challenge that presented doing that, because then, giving the creators these tools to go make their own things. Who knows? Like they can make way cooler stuff than we're making with their Akutars, or combining them with the art that they're doing. So I think that's kind of like how I look at it. We have to continue to build and bring in artists in ways that can help build them on a platform, put them on like a pedestal.
Right. Yeah. And I think that makes total sense, because to me is right now, it's like we're still so early days, right, of the entire space, that it's expensive to do something, right? Like if, I want to launch an NFT project, like, you have to be like technically savvy, or you have to have a technical person on your team. There's no like Squarespace, let's call it, for like, making an NFT project, which I assume there will be soon. But, to your point is like, you want to do something. So it's like, if you're an artist, you're most likely not a very technical person, right? You're creative. And so it's like, how can you give these artists the tools that they need to create the stuff that they want, in the metaverse, right? And that to me is like, yeah.
That's right, dude. That's right. That's right. Like I'm not like I said, like I'm, the one hit wonder thing. Like, like back in like last year when things were booming and everyone's like, you're blowing up. Like, how can I, like you got to put me on, like, how can I get in? I never felt comfortable because it was a thing that I hadn't proven out yet. Like I had not proven out. There wasn't like a thing that I could say we successfully did this, so I can teach you how to do it. Right. Like it was still so early. And I think we are still early, that it still needs to be proven out. Like it still needs to reach a mass distribution for anybody to say that, like, okay, I can teach you how to do this now. Like take IP through a pipeline that can reach the masses, to passive consumers. We haven't done that yet. We haven't been there yet. And so for me, like, that's why I'm focused on the building infrastructure and tooling, alongside building out the IP that can help funnel that through, that can be duplicated again and again.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's super interesting, because I think we're going to see this type of concept and model happen over and over again across different industries, right? Like as, to your point, right? It's like, you don't want to make a game, and that's fine, right? Like you want to do the things that interest you. And I think right now, the way the space is at the moment is everyone's like, oh, this is going to center around like a PFP project, or it has to be this, or it has to be that. And they try to silo things. But at the end of the day, is like the beauty of it is like, if somebody wants to come and then use your technology to do like their own, twist on community building and IP building, like they're going to have the tools to do it. And they're not going to need to have like, $200,000 to $500,000 in funding just to get out the gate. Right.
That's right.
That's
right. That's right. Like, that's how we look at it, and we have an incredible team of people, incredible support from partners on the tooling side, and and I think that's admittedly that that's like something that I have this vision of this interconnective, I call it like IP channels, but getting down to the technicals piece of things is not my area, but I have the vision of the whole thing. Having this team allows me to focus, to your point, like you need teams and things like that, allows me to focus on the story building and the creative around Aku and the brand around Aku, that as that becomes successful, the tooling and infrastructure piece of it becomes successful. So it's like, it's super fun. Like I don't know how to say it any other way. So it's really fun, and I'm very fortunate to have a community who's been around for over a year now to understand. Sometimes there's windows where we need to build and we don't need to ship things to them that are immediate things that they could flip. Essentially, is how I say it. Right? They know that we're building things that should have long terminal value for the community.
Right. I guess I think that's super interesting, right? Because I think how have you been able to kind of I guess to put that to create that mindset within the community, right? Because I think some communities become super toxic where they just want number to go up, right? And it's like as I think about it, I think one way to do it is by not emphasizing price of anything, right? And being like, to your point, is like this isn't for value tomorrow; it's value, 10 years from now and 20 years from now. But how have I guess what concerted efforts have you made? Because I'm sure it all starts at the top, right? Like if the community if the founders constantly tweeting about price, then the community will be thinking about price no matter what. So I guess what have you done as a founder to kind of help put that at bay? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people listening that are probably interested on how can they put down the toxic side of the community.
You have to build it over time, and you have to deliver and execute on things. And I remember early on last year, we had chapter 1 released February 21st, chapter 2 released April 18th, chapter 3 wasn't released until August 1st. So there was a massive window of time there where there was no delivery of airdrops or product or anything like that. Right. And I remember early on, there was like a week window where things kind of went like sideways, and there was some contention within our community. We're small then. This is before the PFPs. Like we were launching chapters on Nifty Gateway, no other offerings. We didn't have a big Discord. It was 2,000 people, 1,000 people. But there was some contention. But, we got over that. And I think that was one of the biggest moments for our community. We got over that because, I'm always in the Discord. Like every day I'm in the Discord. Every day I'm communicating in there. I'm answering questions. Like there's nobody. I set it up like there's nobody that like I'm not too good to do anything or answer anything or answer a support ticket. Like that's not how this goes down, because I value being in the Discord. I value the feedback that I get, good, bad, or indifferent. And 2, like I want to show people that I'm here and I'm like accessible in the good times and in the bad times. Like that's really important. And that was just developed over time. And then we continued to execute. Okay, like we brought this person in for this role. Okay, we delivered this. Okay, we put on this event. Okay, we delivered these assets. We're showing in real time how we're building these Akutars on metahumans, right? We're showing in real time these environments being built. So it's just being transparent and being accessible that builds that trust. And that's really it.
Right. And I mean, you mentioned it there, and I want to touch upon it, is, the good times and the bad times, right? And obviously, you had the mint of the Akutars. Very unfortunate. I wanted to kind of go over that a little bit, what it was like for those that don't know exactly what happened. And I thought the response of you and your team, I know I DM'd you like, right after it happened, telling you like I was here for you if you needed something. But yeah, like what was that like internally, and how you handled it and what you learned from it?
I was talking about this last night. It was the worst moment of my life, and it was because you are in the blind on things happening in real time. So that's first and foremost. This is stuff happening in real time. Everything is you're trying. I'll never forget just trying to understand what was being talked about while having to make decisions in real time while it felt like the whole world was watching, right? And it was incredibly tough, but the most important thing to me the whole time was that we had to figure out a way to get the community their money back. There was a time where I don't know, I thought we were, it was hacked and all the money's locked, and I just thought that like that was my biggest fear, is that the whole community was gone. I was like, let's just, what do we do? What do we do? I need to figure out how to get, they were sending messages, and there was a whole thing, it was very, how do we get this back, or how do we do that? And luckily, the community got their money back, and, I felt okay about that. I felt really good that I don't, the rest, but, and then it just hit me, man. I just collapsed. I just collapsed because I realized how much work went into that, how much attention to detail went into everything from across the board, scaling the team to like 40 to 50 people on the Akutar pipeline alone to deliver these assets in a manner that were interoperable, and do this in a very unique way. And to see all that, how it went down from that mistake, I just collapsed. I don't know, man. I remember I was in London and I was there. I was up for 4 days straight, didn't eat, didn't sleep. I landed back in the States and went straight to the hospital because I was like, my body like kind of just shut down. It was tough. It was really tough. But everybody, the most important thing was the community made it right. We issued $2.5 million in refunds out of pocket, to make everybody right on top of the other refunds, and deliver the product. So I'm proud of the team for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it was like heartbreaking to watch it in real time, and, just seeing but it also was good in that seeing like the community come together, right? Like just other people within the crypto space, like offering like a helping hand to try to figure it out. But like, I've been in those live drop rooms, with some, with like the Adidas stuff. And, it's like a war room, right? For a reason, right? Like, it's like, you want to make sure you get this feeling of anxiety, like beforehand. And it's like your worst dream comes true, right? Like the worst thing that could happen is like money getting locked and not being able to access it, or something going wrong, a hack or whatever. So, yeah, like what do you think was your biggest learning from that you took away from like the entire ordeal?
Biggest learning was the biggest learning was how, there's two. I don't know which one is bigger yet, but one was how important it is to move cohesively with the community and value the whole ecosystem of NFTs, because to your point, the response of that was overwhelming. But like, I didn't expect that, right? Didn't like deserve that in my mind, right? Like it was, but it made me realize that, everything is connected. This is not a zero-sum game. This is not, competition between things. It can't be, because it's too important of an industry. We've all worked tirelessly. We need to elevate and support one another. It doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but we have to support each other in a way that continue to rise and make this space better, right? Secondly was the fact of like, just as a business owner, okay, you running a business, getting the right pieces in place to ensure that there's checks and balances across the ecosystem, and doing so in a way that you scale a team and delegate responsibilities, in a manner that you have, checks and balances. Because at the end of the day, you can't oversee everything. To your point, when you are in this world, you have the creative side, you have the technical side, you have marketing, you have divisions. These are businesses these artists are running, and you need to be able to scale a team, and not everybody can scale a team. And at that point, and that was a realization that you have to scale a team across the board, and just want to be better at it, man. It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, no,
there's no way around it.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. I guess, this is a question I'm asking for myself is, I assume the first time we spoke, you probably you probably had a team of maybe like less than 5 people, right? I'd assume like a year ago
Two.
ish. Two, exactly. How big's your team now?
It just depends. I think internally, um, over 10, 10, 12. But
Right.
then when we need to scale up, because, from a production standpoint, that's when it gets to the 40 to 50 to 60 range,
Right.
um, when we need to scale up for production.
What any piece of advice for people looking to scale the team? Not, and I'm asking that very selfishly.
It's hard, it's hard because you want to get the right people in, but you also have a speed that you have to do it at. You have a community that is that you have to be you're responsible for. You're building in the open, so you can't. It's not like you're founding a company. You scale it out and you raise capital on that. You're building in the open,
Right.
um, and so you need to get the right people in. Any advice? I'm in the middle of it right now, and we're scaling really heavily right now, from not the creative side, um,
Yeah, like the operational side.
operational side. I think that is very important. Is probably the most important piece is the operational side when it comes to the scaling. Because you scale that correctly, then they can scale out the other teams needed.
Right.
And, you know, it just depends, dude. Because I think there's some artists that have made a lot of money, right? There's some people that have made a lot of money in this space, and I think it's perfectly okay that if they want to be an artist and don't want to be a business, I think that's perfectly okay, and that's what
Right.
artists do. I'm not saying Cause doesn't have a business, but Cause makes art, and and really can make a lot of great things, or it's okay to be an artist, and you don't have to scale. Not everybody needs to scale into the next big thing, and because the more you the more you push, and the more you go, are generating more revenue, the more responsibility and pressure comes with it, and it's not always, uh, uh, it's not
Right.
always worth it.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say it because sometimes like I go through that on my own stuff, right? Where it's like I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of responsibility. Like people rely on me, right? Like whereas, before, even like as a baseball player, I'm
That's right.
sure it's like it's kind of, your family relies on you obviously, but and your teammates do, but it's not, you know, the livelihood of people that are relying on you, right? So I think with that gets comes a little bit of pressure, right? That it starts off as one thing, and you started off as an artist in the space, and it's amazing that it's grown to be so much bigger. But with that comes its own set um, of worries and stuff that you just have to concern yourself with that you didn't before.
That's right. I think it's okay. I look at us artists, one of the best examples for me, that and someone I absolutely love, is Mad Dog Jones. Mad Dog Jones,
Mhm.
when he comes out with something, he is fire, but it's not all the time. You don't know when it's coming, but when it comes, it's like, God damn, what is that? And that's what, and I really admire that. And I think I treat my paintings that way. But I made a very conscious decision early on when we did the film deal to let that expire, because I saw a bigger opportunity that could, really, really, do something special with our community and the IP, and doing it in a way that was independent. And I knew then that what the responsibility came with that, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. You got to be willing to sacrifice everything if you're going to really put it, go for
Right.
it.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I think that's something that people, when you want to pivot from, let's say, just being a creator of any sort to kind of building a business, right, is like the skill sets are different, right? And you have to make sure you adapt to that and be fluid with what's required, especially as a founder.
Yeah, even you get busy, man. I remember watching. I've been watching you blow up, and the things that you're doing. And it's like there's you can take this as far as you want to take it,
Mhm.
like, but it's gonna be a decision at some point where you're gonna be like, I'm good here. I'm good at this
Right.
level. I'm good at just, I want to live life, because I think, and everybody else in this space that's been really building over the past year, like it's I don't know, I don't want to call it addicting, but you don't that doesn't, you can't turn it off. Once
Right.
it's on, it's not going. You can't. There's no off switch.
Right.
And so it's something that people need to, we should talk more about, is just that fact of it, because it's a real mental thing for people too. You got to take care of your mental, and sometimes mental sacrificing your mental is not as important as $20 million, $30 million, even $100 million. It's not worth it.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that because I think I'm working the hardest I've ever worked in my life, and I love it, right? Like it's definitely it doesn't feel like work. I wake up every day, I'm excited to do what I'm doing. But one of the things I've been very, very conscious of that I've been trying to do more is like going for a walk, like in the mornings or like in the evenings, just to get outside, to put down my phone. Like I try to like unplug on the weekends where it's like I don't need to be in front of Twitter, tweeting and seeing everything that's happening all the time. Like it's okay if you miss it. I think the bear market obviously is helping, but I just think from your point, like the mental health that's required to kind of even with the situation that had happened with the minting, right, is being like, okay, like it's not the end of the world. This happened for a reason. I don't know what that reason is just yet, but like you're gonna find out at some point, right? And you're gonna be a better person, stronger person because of it. Like I don't know. That's just like the way I've been trying to operate, and just
That's
being
right.
super super cognizant of mental health on top of everything, right?
It's early, man. Like, look, you've built something that's going to last a long time. Whether as long as the blockchain is turning, and even beyond that now. But like, you built something that you could is sustainable for a long time. So not going on Twitter every day is not that big a deal in the whole scheme of things. Not going on Discord, not feeling beholden to win announcement, win this, win that. Like, it's okay if you like. I tweeted something last night, and it was like, I heard like Jay-Z say this is like confidence is when you like no one can speed up your process. Like if you know your process, if you're confident in what you're doing, your process is your process, and there's nothing can speed that up. Bull market, bear market, whatever it is, it can't speed up. It can't speed it up. And so I'm very confident in what we got. I'm very confident in it across the entire board, from the IP to this, to the product side, to the tech side. And so I've been doing a better job at that. I got to a point like, dude, like when the whole thing went down, I was like, we got to go now. Like, there's no breaks. Like, you got to go again 10 times harder. And we're going 10 times harder, like for the whole year. And so, I had to like stop myself and say,
Right.
but let's be very smart and move correctly, not quickly. Because at the end of the day, I felt like we wanted to show everybody that we're good, like, that money didn't hurt, and all that.
Yeah.
And we started, thinking of ideas. And I was like, wait a minute, slow down and move correctly. Like, move correctly, because when we do something, it's got to be a big thing. It's got to be smart.
And I think that's super important, right? Like I think that a lot of times I remember in my previous life I was a trader, right? And so when you trade, just because you spend more time doing work doesn't necessarily mean it yields bigger results, right? And just
Right.
as an athlete, right? It's like just because you spend more time training doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a better player, right? So a lot of times is like you want to push yourself as much as you possibly can, but you also want to be cognizant of like, yeah, but like we're not going to fuck up the game plan, right? Like it's like this is, we have to be methodical, and we have to be super conscious of the moves that we're making and work our hardest, but also not just be like, all right, like just getting the reps in doesn't do it. They have to be conscious reps, right?
That's right. That's right. Conscious reps.
Yeah.
10 good reps. I always said this: 10 good reps off a tee is better than 100, like, just, annoying, kind of like going through the motion reps off a tee.
Right. Yeah. No.
Just,
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And how I guess one question I have is I guess with the issues from the mint, how did that affect the roadmap going forward,
so yeah, so
or like the things that you're
it's a good question. Luckily, I don't know if anybody knew this. I saw people saying, like, this new project, how they gonna, support themselves. Like, people just didn't have the facts. Like, the facts is we're a venture-backed company that generated a substantial amount of revenue in 2021, right? formalized the company, reinvested, every chapter dollar secondary sale into the company, along with VC money. That was a revenue generating event that hurt. Of course, it hurt, dude. But what that was, and what that means is there's trade offs that I have to make personally. So when we go into film financing or series financing, like I'm gonna have to make some trade offs on the IP side of things that I probably wouldn't have had to make if I was just making it myself and funding it myself.
Right.
Product side, on physical, I'm talking physical product, consumer products.
Right.
There'd be some trade offs because now we need financial support on distribution and manufacturing, right? That's what that means. But like the best thing that I probably could have ever done was to understand the power of Unreal Engine and the power of interoperable assets, and how something can be made very inexpensively and be reused across so many different platforms, because then like it doesn't require constant financing of new things, or development of new things, or raising capital for new things. Like things can be used across the board.
Right. No,
So that's really how.
right. Yeah. I mean, and like also it's like, I think the secondary sales, right? Like I think over the long term, like that will definitely help with regards to recovering some of those losses. But I just think that I think you're ultimately in a good spot because you've built a solid community around yourself, and you've been building for a long time, right? And it's like you've been in the space, you've been super active, and me personally, I'm super excited. The fund that I'm running with Delphi, is invested in the project as well, and I'm super excited with all the things that you're building, and I know everybody on the team there is excited about everything as well. So, me personally, like I think the future is bright for Aku and everything that you're working on, right? Because I remember that first combo we had, we were like, going back and forth. I mean, I think it was like just a random DM, right? Like one of us DM'd the other, and we had like a great like 1 hour combo. And we'll touch base every once in a while. And I'm always like blown away by, how authentic and genuine you are, and how hardworking and driven you are.
I appreciate that, man. I think that conversation was, I'll never forget that. That was, very, very transformative in the way I think about things. I'm super proud of what you've been doing, man. I've been watching, and it's really cool the way you're carving out a lane and carving out a narrative that's a common, cohesive across the board. It's not some sporadic thing. I know, what you kind of stand for and the brand that what it represents. So, super proud of everything you're doing. And I'm not, for me, look, there's a couple of things I look at in the space is, you mentioned like secondary sales, and we got things that we want to do and really drive value. But I also think that, the things that we want to build out can drive value in ways that are independent of needing for someone to sell something sell something to someone willing to pay higher for it. Right. And looking at microtransactions and looking at ways that, these in-game assets or in-world assets and things like that is something that, we're really focused on, because you never know where this is going to go, and being contingent on a whole business on secondary sales of a very high price asset isn't a very smart business decision if you're not looking at other models that have worked in the past.
Right. No, that makes total sense. Could you elaborate on that a little bit, or is it still?
Yeah. I just look at there's going to be requirements, like even soon, like in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start releasing some of these, these in-world assets that, you just very few people will have, and people are going to want them. They want to flex on people. They want to be able to use them in a story, whatever the reason is. But we look at this as an opportunity of more so volume than it is necessarily
Price.
High price assets, right? If you have a really cool living room set in your virtual space next to like your really cool NFTs, but there's only 3 of those or 5 of those, whatever there is, and those can trade. And you just there's these in-world assets, and then you take a step further, and now you have other people creating assets in a more sustainable marketplace where people are creating assets, and all of a sudden you're seeing this world just be built out. That's what I'm interested in, and seeing how the revenue from these things can flow back into the community. Because I think one of the misnomers about all of this stuff and like the end goals. Like, how do you funnel? I get this question a lot early on. Was like, how do you funnel film and revenue back into the community? Well, there's two things I see that's wrong with that. Is one is like, a film money is not like the thing that's not big money that like people think it is, right? Two, like that's not really a feasible thing if you're looking at like a really big like theatrical release and you want to just give revenue back. That's not legal at the current moment. So, but how do you create that community connection through these by empowering the community to create things and to monetize their assets, and then give them a platform to do that on, and then capture the value and deliver that back into the ecosystem, and reward some of the people that are doing the most, people that are building, people that are making the best virtual environments and things like that. I think that's what is super, super interesting for us, at least.
Right. No, and that makes total sense, right? I think it's funny because I think a lot of people fall into that utility trap, right? Of being like, oh, well, we're going to do this. And I think a lot of that stems from projects that are, just trying to like sell a pipe dream, right? That might otherwise not be feasible. Whereas I agree with you. It's like by virtue of, let's say, Aku becoming more well known in the zeitgeist of culture, then the entire ecosystem is worth more and everyone benefits. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a direct, oh well, a securitization of the NFT per se, right? Where it's like, oh well, it gives you your pro
That's right.
rata, of whatever the revenue is or whatever, right?
Yeah. Like, you're right. Like, I think for us, we have very clear divisions of teams where it's the Aku brand building, and like over the next couple of weeks, you're going to start seeing these things really start to turn on, where it's geared towards passive consumers and passive audience, right? Building a brand beyond NFTs. Where like you might just follow Aku for a whole year, you might not even know Aku's an NFT. Like that's like the goal, right? Because you're going to capture a few people that want to come into the NFT space out of that mass, appeal of the things that you're doing, right? But your business is not contingent on capturing thousands of people or millions of people and bringing them into the Akutar 15,000 collection, right? Because we are building the infrastructure that allows these passive consumers and the tools of these passive consumers to play in this ecosystem in a way that, like, they can co-create, they can create with their different things, and they can provide value to a community. But you have other flows of value that can go into the community. I think that's really, really important, and it takes away the pressure. Like we're still going to do the fun things like the airdrops with partners and things coming up. Like that stuff is great, but they all have real use cases. In world use case, physical use cases, whatever that case may be. They have use cases to the bigger ecosystem. Everything has to be intertwined and connected.
Right. No, that makes total sense. So, I mean, I guess what do you have in store for Aku World? You said some collaborations. Is there anything you can tease, or
Yeah.
I assume you've got some big things in the pipe.
Yeah, we got something here. We're going to do it spaces for like 15 minutes with Planes today. The brand partners we brought in were very strategic in the sense that like they operate very much as like we're very close with them. They believe in Aku as a mission, right? And the people that we really wanted to integrate into our ecosystem, not just because they wanted to get into Web3, but because they really believed in Aku. So it was fun because there was an educational piece of it too. Educating them on the way that things work and different things like that. Them in the community learning. So doing airdrops with the community, with these brands, and very selective things that are only accessible for the Akutar community, but also not limiting it to just these brands either. It's just these brand partners that we are working with, Puma and Planes and BBC, Who Decides War, Vandal, have a very clear vision on how they want to integrate into our ecosystem. So over the next couple of weeks, there'll be a big initiative around, one of our brand partners, and rewarding different tiers of our ecosystem with really usable things, very rare things. One thing in particular has never been done before. That's going to be for our community. Really, really special. And then starting to release some of the virtual environments for people to display their Akutars, which these environments will be able to be built on top of, built in Unreal. And so that's all coming in, but it's like the next. It's all summer long.
All right, awesome. As a holder, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Micah, thank you for taking the time. For those that want to find out more information about the project, what's the best way for them to stay up to date?
Discord's great. Like there's people in there. I'll. There's a good chance I might answer your questions. Discord's phenomenal. Twitter, but yeah, our Discord's really good. Just follow us on Twitter, Aku Dreams, and hop in there.
All right, awesome. And before I let you go, what's your favorite NFT that's not Akutar?
Cyber brokers. I'm talking straight up, like not art specific. But
I love Cyber.
love cyber
Yeah,
brokers.
I truly great. And like the artwork, I fuck with it. It's so good.
I love cyber broker. I love the whole team over there. That's the monster team.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you
Yeah, I
thinking?
mean, outside of my CryptoPunk, I mean, I love cyber brokers as like something that's relatively new, right? Because it came out a couple months ago. But my favorite NFT is actually like it's like the first collaboration I did was with Twerky, back in January of last year, where we did this collab, and I mean, just talking to this guy based out of Eastern Europe, originally from South America, and he did about like I think $10,000 or $12,000 in sales after the tweet, and he was like, "You changed my life." And he's gone on like his own route down here in the NFT space, and it's I don't know, just being able to help somebody kind of like go after their dreams to me like means a lot, right? More so than the money or the accolades or whatever. It's just like really being able to help somebody that it wasn't that much for me that it took, and like to have this friend that I've never met, right? Like yourself, right? We've never met, but I feel like a really close connection to you because we've spoken so much on the phone, we've spoken on DMs, like right. It's like I don't know. It's just like the power of that human connection outside of just being behind a screen, and that to me like really sticks.
I love that. I love that. That's what Jimmy did with me when he bought my first artwork in 2000, early 2020, in February. Um, you always have that connection. That's one thing I hope um, the space can get back to is just organic belief in artists or projects. I think it got to a point where it was so many different things you didn't know who to trust or what to trust.
Yeah, no, and I'm very much looking forward to the first time we meet in person. I feel like I'm gonna give you a big hug. Like, dude, the first time I met Jimmy, gave him a big hug. Same thing with Nate Alex, right? Like all these guys that are legends, literally like red pilling me in Discord like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And it's like the first time it's funny because I've never experienced that before in my life, right? Where this person that I've never met, don't even know those guys, we know their names, but a lot of these people don't even know their real names, and they're like brothers, right? Like that I hadn't met. So I'm looking forward to that day with you. Thank you for your time, Mike. I really appreciate it. Uh, Looking forward to everything you guys are doing. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.